Hey, Merry Christmas, everybody. Welcome to the Daily Drop of Hope Christmas edition. That's right. We're doing the 12 days of Christmas together. We came through the Advent season using a wonderful resource, Walter Brueggemann's Advent devotion. And now we're jumping into this devotion, really the 12 days of Christmas by Dr. Bruce Epperly. And I'm excited about this. This is a great resource. If you haven't yet picked it up, go to Amazon, grab it, download it on your Kindle, get it through Prime, whatever it might be. But every day we're going to be working through this. And I spoke with Dr. Epperly a few months ago about what we were wanting to do, and he was super gracious and gave us permission to use it. And truth is, I'm just going to kind of read through it each day and maybe make some comments on some things that speak to me or spoke to me. But I would encourage you to get this and read through it and jump on every day. So Merry Christmas. I hope the gifts are open. I hope that there's a great celebration planned today. I hope you were able to join us for the candlelight services last night or the night before. Christmas, I love it. It's one of my favorite days of the year. I just kind of hang out and chill out. And I'm right here on the stage, but I'm not here live on the stage. I'm probably having breakfast or something right now. But here we go, the first day of Christmas as we walk through the 12 days of Christmas. And today's really is all about the character of God, right? This is what it says. The Father and I are one. If I'm not doing the works of the Father, Jesus said, then don't believe in me. But if I do them, even though you don't believe in me, believe the works, so that you may know and understand that the Father is in me and I am in the Father. John 10:30 and 38. Howard Thurman said this, if God is, and God is love, as I believe most profoundly, and if in Jesus there is the projection of this central affirmation in concrete flesh and blood, then in such a person there are inevitably precious clues as to the meaning of God and the meaning of life. His way of life then becomes the way of life at its highest and best. Dr. Epperly writes, our faith tells us that if we want to know God's true character, we need to look at Jesus and his ministry. On Christmas morning, we discover that the heart of the incarnation is not about theological doctrines, moral guidance, commandments, or dramatic revelations. No, but it's about the birth of a baby, an ordinary event that's occurred several billion times. In its simplicity, this event reveals God's relationship with humankind in the non-human world. The word and wisdom of God, the creative artistry of the universe, and the energy of the Big Bang, they all take on flesh in this vulnerability and innocence that we call a newborn baby. Now take a moment just to reflect on the birth of Jesus or the birth of your own children. At first, right, they simply sleep, they cry, they eat, they poop. They are completely vulnerable. They're helpless, needy, totally dependent on the loving care of others. Check this out. Their lives depend on the grace of interdependence. I love that statement. Their lives depend on the grace of interdependence, right? The intricate connectedness that gives birth to compassionate care and sustaining love. Grace is everything. A love not earned, but deserved and given to the little ones in our midst. Nothing is more ordinary yet amazing than the birth of a child. Nothing could be more complicated and subject to fate than a child's birth. Just as Dr. Epperly writes about his grandchildren and his children being born, how they received the benefits of a middle-class, privileged American birth, good health care, a nursery waiting for them, parents who could imagine their lives as unfolding in terms of good schools and colleges and successful and creative adults. But this isn't the case for many children today, and it wasn't the case for Mary and Joseph's baby. Jesus was the child of working class parents. They were economically insecure, politically powerless. Jesus' parents were in Bethlehem for his birth because they didn't have a choice in the matter, right? They would have preferred for Jesus to have been born in their hometown Nazareth, but Caesar Augustus demanded that they and thousands of other families travel to the village of Joseph, right? His family's line, and they had to register for taxes, right? That's why. So Mary and Joseph, they would have far rather had the comfort of their own home for the birth of their first child, but instead, they were not only far from home, but there was also no place for them to stay. Like other homeless families, they had to settle for whatever they could find. A spare room, a stable, a cave, or even the open air for the birth of Jesus. Today we're listening to Christmas carols. We've heard Christmas carols playing. And even in that moment, right, we feel this spiritual disturbance as whole families are being harmed all around the world, right? Injustice continues and it presses in. And it's going on as we're celebrating Christmas. And God, have mercy on us. Forgive us, for we don't know what we're doing as we helplessly look on the pain and injustices at times. And as we look helplessly on it, there are frightened and hard-hearted politicians and church leaders speaking out against things like welcoming refugees and needing to be responsible. All of these things, like they just pound in on us as we celebrate in our comfort, not imagining that Jesus himself was one of those refugees. 30 years ago, American songwriter Joan Osborne wrote, "What if God was one of us?" And then described the experiences of fallible and forgotten people simply trying to find their way home. You know, in the Bethlehem stable, we discover that Emmanuel, God with us, is best understood not as this all-powerful distant Caesar immune from human misery, but as fully connected with human life. Or as the philosopher Alfred North Whitehead says, he was the fellow sufferer who understands. A few years after Whitehead's affirmation of God's intimacy with us, Dietrich Bonhoeffer, protesting the inhumanity of the Nazi regime from a prison in Germany, asserted that only a suffering God can save us. Think about that. Only a suffering God can save us. The Christmas stories show us God with us, fully immersed in the messiness of daily life, in experiences of vulnerability and powerlessness, at the mercy of heartless and uncaring political leaders. The incarnation brings heaven to earth, and it brings earth to heaven. A stable and our own homes become chock full with divinity, and God becomes fully aware of the sorrows and joys of human life. I love this statement. God is part of the intricate interdependence of life, feeling the full range of hope and fear, touched by a child's cry as bombs rain down all over the world, touched by the grief of a parent, of a teen shot down in the city streets of America. God rejoiced when you were born and delighted in your moments of achievement and spiritual transformation. God's power is love, not coercion, exclusion, or violence. God changes the world by living in our midst and inviting us to care for the lost, lonely, and forgotten. For that is where we will find this little child. As another Christmas hymn proclaims, a Jesus is our childhood's pattern. Day by day, like us he grew. He was little, weak, and helpless. Tears and smiles like us he knew. And he feels for all our sadness, and he shares in all our gladness. You know, I hope you'll take a few moments and look at the Christmas practices and the Christmas prayers that are there at the end of the chapter. So thanks for jumping in as we begin our journey into the 12 days of Christmas. Have an awesome Christmas day.